Good evening, this is Xenia, and tonight we're going to be discussing the novel The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. The title is a bit of a mystery. Professor Eco himself said that he just picked it because it sounded neutral. A lot of ink has been spilt by people writing essays, speculating on what the name of the rose actually means. There are no roses in the story, so I say just let it remain an enigma. The book was written in 1980, but it is set in northern Italy in 1327. Professor Eco was a professor of semiotics, that is the study of symbolism. And this book is basically a murder mystery. There's 4 or 5 murders, but the murders themselves are interspersed with long passages where theology and the politics of the day are discussed. The main character is Brother William of Baskerville, who is a Franciscan monk from England. There is no place in England called Baskerville, but you may remember the name from The Hound of the Baskervilles, which we talked about a few episodes ago. Brother William is very much like Sherlock Holmes. He sees tiny little specks of dust and can figure out who the murderer is based on that, more or less. He's a very rational, scientifically minded person. And while he is a Christian, he doesn't immediately jump to a supernatural explanation for things. Unlike our next character, Brother Adso of Milk, a very young monastic from Germany, and he is the narrator. This is like the book we did last time, Treasure Island, where a young man the same age as Brother Adso, Jim Hawkins, are part of the story and also the narrator. Brother Adso now, he does believe in supernatural things, and he doesn't always approve of William's methods. He's always a little disappointed when a rational answer is found for a mysterious thing. But really, the main character of this book is the monastery itself, and most particularly a tower within called the Edificium, which has 3 stories. The bottom story is, the ground story is where the refectory is, the dining room, and the kitchens. And then the second one is the scriptorium, where monastics sit by big windows and copy books. So monks come from all over the Catholic world to make use of the library, which is on the 3rd floor, so they can make copies of books to take back to their own monasteries. The library up on the 3rd floor is a big mystery, because no one's allowed up there except the librarian himself, Brother Berengar, and his assistant too. And you can't just wander up there and browse amongst the stacks and look for a good read. You have to have a reason. So if you're a monastic and you're sent from, France to the monastery because your monastery wants a copy of a particular book, when you get there, you have to convince the librarian that it is a worthy task, and that he may or may not let you have the book, and then he will go up and get it. So the library, as we will discover, is like a labyrinth, and it is a very forbidding place. So in the background of the story, there are several controversies, political and theological. The main problem that is besetting Catholics in this part of the world is the question of poverty. Was Jesus Christ and his disciples impoverished? Did Jesus own anything? And if he didn't own anything, maybe we shouldn't own anything either. And we're not talking about socialism here. We're just talking about pure poverty. And so the Franciscans were fairly inclined towards this, but as it became more established, the less inclined the leadership was to embrace poverty. And the Pope was completely against it. So there was just a big controversy, should we be impoverished or not. So the monasteries, which were very wealthy at this time, did not want to give up their wealth. They had a lot of wealth. Rich people back in those days, if they wanted to get in good with God, they would send a lot of money to the local monastery. So that was one argument they were having. Also, during this time, there was the continual argument of whether the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire or the Pope himself, who has ultimate authority in an area. That's a secondary, for the purpose of this book, to the poverty question, which was raging in all areas where there were Franciscans, because some of them were pretty radical, and there were even some murders. So that's the thing that's going on behind, and there is people from both sides are coming to this monastery to hash it out, and William, a rational thinker, has been sent to oversee as a neutral moderator, you might say. Now, locally in this particular monastery, they were arguing over not if Jesus laughed or not. The laughter of Jesus. Did Jesus ever laugh? Did he tell jokes? No one ever thought he told jokes, but did he laugh? Even did he smile? And so there was a party in the monastery that believed that Jesus didn't laugh, and most people thought he did. So here's a synopsis of the story. William and Adso arrive at the monastery in the winter. It's snow, and there's some footprints in the snow, and then some monastics come in a rather hectic way running down the hill. And Brother William says, "Oh, well, the abbot's horse went this way. It's a small horse with big eyes and so tall. And just go around there and you'll find him." And sure enough, I found them. This is a typical way that a Sherlock Holmes story starts, where someone comes into Holmes's living room, and Holmes starts out with a whole, "Oh, I see you took a dog cart from your house, and you live over there, and you drove through a patch of huckleberries." And it's the same thing. So it turned out to be true, and Adso's always playing the Watson role. "Oh, how did you ever know that?" And he's always disappointed when the answer is so mundane. Well, when he gets there, he meets with the abbot, who's a mild fellow, and they talk about the council that's upcoming, but the abbot wants him to do more than just moderate this council. He wants him to investigate a death, because a young monastic was found at the bottom of a cliff. This monastery is up on top of a cliff bank. Did he fall on his own? Did he kill himself, or was he pushed? So William says, "Well, do I have access to everything so I can ask questions?" And the abbot says, "Yes, but you may not go into the library. In fact, don't bring this library up at all." Which naturally causes Brother William to figure out that the answer to the problem is somewhere up in that secret forbidden library. So the story goes on. Murders continue apace. The brothers will be in church doing compline or something, and a big shriek will be heard out in the courtyard, and they go out and there's another dead monk. And so how are these monastics' deaths connected to the library, which is what William suspects, based almost entirely on the abbot's telling him not to go up there? So this eventually, William and Adso find a way, and they sneak up into the library. It's the most exciting part of the book by far. And this library is a very creepy place. It's a labyrinth. Corners turn. It seems much bigger on the inside than it appears on the outside. They come to a place where there will be like a table with like a burning incense holder, and the fumes coming up cause hallucinations. Poor little Adso has some crazy dreams while he's in there. And then you go around another corner, and there's a mirror, a crazy wavy mirror, like in a circus funhouse, and scary. So the whole time up there is very scary, and they find some unusual books and whatnot. But to tell you the honest truth, they don't really learn much up there to solve the mysteries, because the mystery of these murders turns out to be a lot more commonplace than some mysterious book written in a foreign language, hiding behind some hallucinogenic smoke. But I'm not going to tell you how the story ends, because this is a rather recent book. Perhaps you haven't read it yet, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. So you can read it yourself. You know, all the other books I've told how they end, but that's because they're all old books and everybody already knows how they end. So that's the story. It's a long book, a lot of discussion about things that to us in the modern world seems silly, but that's because these questions are all answered back then. We don't really ask if Jesus ever laughed. That's something we care about. We assume he did. I wouldn't say Jesus told jokes, but there are some places in the Gospels where he says some things that I could see. I could see a smile or a chuckle as he said some of these stories. Now, there came out a movie in 1986, which starring Sean Connery, and I do not recommend it because while the movie, for the most part, is pretty good, there is one very explicit scene in there involving ADSO, and I could not, in good conscience, recommend anybody watch this movie with this scene in it. Evidently, there are some mini-series things as well on this movie, which I have not seen. So this is a typical of a certain type of movie where there is a mystery, being the murders in this case of these young monastics. But you realize there's far more to this book than that. There's this entire story about whether Christians should have any money at all, and the whole problem with the Franciscans. One of the things was, even if the Franciscans were right, does that mean they're better Christians? So that's a thing ADSO rolls over in his mind a lot. How strict do you have to be a good Christian? ADSO is telling this story. Actually, he's writing this story back in his own home monastery of Melk in Germany, and he's an elderly man, and he has kept everything that happened in this monastery a secret until he was about to die, and then he wrote it out. So another book that has the same thing, but I think a little better done, is The Brothers Karamazov, which we're going to have a little later on this year. This is also a murder mystery with a whole lot going on besides that. A lot of theology, and not just did Jesus laugh type of theology. It's like, what does it mean to be holy? Those kinds of things. I remember when I first read The Brothers Karamazov when I was probably in my 20s, I thought, this is a very elaborate murder mystery. And then I read it again a second time, and I thought, there's a lot of theology here. This is more. There's more than just, I don't need to skip over this stuff. This is really quite meaningful. And when I think about the third time I read it, I was like, wow, this is a great book on theology, and it just happens to have a murder mystery kind of tucked away in it. I took a course on this in high school at the University of California. The teacher was not a Christian. We're talking about the Brothers Karamazov here. I'll probably say this all over again when we do the Brother Karamazov in a few months. And he got it all wrong. He really didn't understand that. He did not see it as a Christian would see it. And he did not see it as an Orthodox Christian would have seen it. So he seemed like to me he emphasized non-consequentials. So if you would like to read a book about, if you find monasticism interesting, and if you find medieval times interesting, and you would like to read a book about murders that take place in monasticism in medieval times, and perhaps rather than plowing through all the intricacies of the Name of the Rose, you might like better Brother Cadfael Chronicles. Brother Cadfael, written by our series of 20 books, thin books, written by Ellis Peters, and they're set in the 1100s. And the hero is Brother Cadfael, who is a Welsh Benedictine monk his job at the monastery is that of herbalist. And there are murders, and he figures it out. He also is a kind of scientific in his thought, but he's a devout believer. And it also has some background history. It takes place in Wales during a time in British history called the Anarchy, when King David of England is battling it out with Empress Matilda over who's going to run England and Wales. And I think the Alice Peter books are a little more romantic, I would say. The Name of the Rose is not romantic. So Humberto Eco has written a lot of books, and a couple of them are on our list for this year too. And one of them is Foucault's Pendulum, which is just a great mess of medieval mysteries all thrown in together. And I think we will have a lot of fun discussing that one when the time comes. So my daughter, Rebecca, if you're listening, she read both of these books, Umberto Eco books. She read The Name of the Rose and Foucault's Pendulum. She read them both last year laying on a beach in Italy. And how can you beat that? I myself would prefer to go to the monastery. So I think that's about it. There's no way I'm going to go through all the particulars of the debate as of wealth versus poverty in the monastic system of medieval Britain and France and Italy. I think today the problem would more be, what about certain Christian groups, televangelists who claim that Jesus was a millionaire, a so-called millionaire, and that you can be a millionaire too if you just name it and claim it. So I think I prefer Jesus was impoverished over Jesus was a millionaire. But that's all for today, and I'm busy reading a very brick of a book. It may take me a while to come back again with another story. But God bless you, and Lent is upon us, and go read a good book.